Welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast, where international cricketer Kieran Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 56 of the PowettPlay Podcast. Thank you for joining me and Kieran. Before we get going on to today's episode, I just want to mention as well in terms of episode 55, and I really want to obviously let people know to listen to the podcast with Sid Malliot. It was extremely insightful, from such an infamous family, and the way he speaks so openly and honestly about his career and his future and stuff. I would really recommend people, spend a bit of time, listening to that, whether it's on the commute, on the road, or if it's on YouTube. The link is in our social media bios, so please give it a listen. In terms of getting started today, Kieran messaged me this morning because he wants to discuss a restructure for international cricket and how it'll work with various franchise tournaments around the world. So the floor is yours, sir.
So I've actually been spending, I'd say, the better part of 2 months trying to figure out how the ICC can sort of reshape international cricket. We've been having discussions, and I've made several suggestions. Obviously, lots of people have varying takes on what ICC has floated now as a two-tiered system. I personally think it's absolute rubbish. I think if cricket goes down that route, I think it's better off you just let franchise T20 cricket be the be-all and end-all and just get rid of international cricket as a whole, because I think it's just absolute rubbish that they'd even think of doing something like this. From my curiosity, as an Englishman, would you want to see the Ashes every year?
No, I wouldn't, because we're talking about, relating it back to the podcast, we've spoken about the work towards it. So we talk about bowler management and, how you have to get certain players in and all about peak performance, because that is the highlight of the calendar for England. That's why 30,000 go over, to Australia to watch the away series, and it's a lot of people's bucket list to go and do that. If that was played more frequently, then the appeal of it would go down, and you get people start to be rested for it, and all the different bits and pieces. It just wouldn't work. And naturally, with any walk of life, whether it be fashion or whether it be, in my opinion, anything like this, limits create hype. So when you bring a brand, some clothing into it, and they only make 50, it generates hype. And by having the frequency of that Ashes series will just reduce the hype, in my opinion.
Simple scarcity. You look at something like Prime when they launched. Scarcity created hype. Yeah. Massive. Demand, supply versus demand.
Yeah.
I think the ICC, for me, they're failing cricket horribly, and they have been for a long time. I don't think that the governance of the game has been in good hands for a long time.
No.
Now, you look at this suggestion of floating Test cricket as a two-tiered system. Cricket is already confusing enough for a non-cricket viewing fan.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and tell them, there's something called Test cricket, it's for 5 days, but you won't necessarily have a winner. But there's 2 tiers to it now as well, Why aren't there two tiers to ODI cricket? Why aren't there two tiers to T20 cricket? Why aren't there two tiers to franchise cricket?
Yeah.
I think they're missing the boat. International cricket is sort of like the NFL. You don't have promotion and relegation in the NFL. You've got some teams that have never won. You've got some teams that have never even been competitive, but they remain in the NFL. You know, it's not a matter of, okay, we're going to relegate them and start another league so that there's a promotion and relegation system.
Yeah.
I think where the ICC are missing the trick in terms of what's right in front of them is that they've created the World Test Championship, but they're not operating it as a World Test Championship.
No.
I think cricket should be on a 3-year, because the ICC at the moment has a global event every year. This was actually the talking point at our dinner table tonight. The whole family was discussing.
Right, okay.
Because my father-in-law is like, another World Cup like this. Wasn't there one last year and the year before? And there's one every year until 2031. So I think in the ICC's quest to have global events every year and sort of maximize their earning potential, cricket should be on a 3-year rotating cycle. It should be the World Test Championship along with the Champions Trophy. Those will be played in the same calendar year. You'll have the T20 World Cup the following year and the 50 over World Cup the following year. And then the cycle repeats itself.
Yeah.
I don't think the Champions Trophy is as big enough an event to merit its sort of own slot in the yearly rotation of what I'm about to put across. But specifically for Test cricket, I think all Test playing nations should be a part of the World Test Championship.
Yeah.
Each series should carry the same amount of points. Now, obviously, each team can't play 5-match series. So I think for the smaller series or for the standard series, it should be 3 matches.
Yeah, the minimum should be 3, yeah.
Yep. For the bigger rivalries and for the bigger nations, as that seems to be what the ICC cares about, those can be 5-match series.
Yeah.
But each series carries the same weight in points.
Yeah.
In a 3-year period, everyone plays everyone. So I think it's 12 international teams with Test status at the moment.
Yeah.
Everyone plays everyone, either home or away. So instantly you have, either 5 or 6 series at home, 5 or 6 series away.
Yeah.
Depending. Right.
Yeah.
Now, when the cycle repeats itself, if you played Australia at home in this 3-year cycle, Australia will come to you in the next 3-year cycle.
Yeah.
For the sustenance of the game, lots of countries only make money when India, Australia,
England,
and England tour. Again, a 3-year cycle. You will get one of those teams every year.
Yeah.
So that gives sustenance to underperforming nations.
Yeah.
Now, the major draw card for me as to how the ICC should play this is that the World Test Championship should be sort of like a World Cup of Test cricket.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean they should package it as you do a 50 over World Cup, a T20 World Cup, and have your own sponsorship rights, your own broadcasting rights, everything specifically for this. So teams can still have their own individual sponsors, broadcast partners within partnership agreements with their respective regional or national broadcasters, but whatever the case is. But for international consumption, you should say, for example, you can go and watch any WTC match on Netflix or an Amazon Prime, whoever the ICC partners with, because then that gives the ICC a huge pool of money and a huge selling point to broadcasters. Look, we've got this product, World Test Championship. We're going to have, let's say, 25 test matches per year. So, For example, each team knows they're going to play X amount of games per year, based on 5 to 6 home and away series over a 3-year period. So that works out to be, 3 to 4 series per year. Of 3 matches. So that's anywhere between 9 to 12 test matches per year. You've already got the maths worked out. Like, it's pretty straightforward. And for the bigger teams, they will have a 5-match series every year. This now allows the ICC to now have a huge pool of money that then they can distribute evenly between the respective nations. Because then now Test cricket can become a viable financial option for players as well. Because if the ICC, for example, is able to generate up to $2 billion a year for these rights, they generate crazy money for 50 over and T20 World Cups. I mean, something like this packaged properly and sold the right way. Let's say whatever they generate, then you can split the money between the respective host nations, between the respective test nations, and the ICC obviously will keep a percentage for operations, etc. But then these boards now have money to pay their players. The ICC can now implement an international wage for Test cricket. An international standard for Test cricket across the board. If boards want to add on top of that for their players in their respective regions,
that's up to that.
That's fine. That's solely up to you. But now you can say, for example, a Test match is 30 grand across the board. So now a player that was going to a T20 league knows that he's playing a 3-match Test series. He's going to get 90 grand. So if he was going to go and play for 110, it's not a player staying and playing for the West Indies, for example, and collecting 15,000 where you would have collected 110,000, and it's not financially feasible. It becomes all right, I can afford to stay and play this series because it's not much of a hit. So I think that's definitely what the ICC needs to do, because then again, as I said, basically you're going to play 2 Test series during your home summer and 2 overseas series, wherever those are in the world. You couple that in with an ODI series and a T20 series, if you want, for those Test series as well. And you've got the international calendar panned out there. So then that gives you huge opportunities and windows for T20 franchise leagues for your players to have
exactly
the best of both worlds. Each country is going to have their players available to them for their home summers, and then you can sort of discuss with your players, or we have 2 winter tours. And when I say winter tours, I mean respective to where that country is based.
Of course, the off season.
But 2 winter tours for your off season. So I said it just completely opens up the window for T20 franchise leagues to have, I guess, the best players available, but for international cricket as well, to have the best players available. And that's sort of my take on how this should be done.
I think the way that you've explained that and the way you've broken it all down makes complete sense, and it definitely makes it feel like it's achievable because it's fair. We're not having this, because one of the things I picked up on when they announced the 2-tier system is there was they didn't state whether it was promotion and relegation. But as it stands at the minute, I think England are 6th in the tiered system. If it was just as it stands, there's no way on earth that England would ever get relegated. So effectively, they're going to base their decision anyway around. It just wouldn't happen. We spoke about this before. It just wouldn't happen. So automatically, you'd end up where you don't have that promotion and relegation. What will end up just happening is that the second tier would just fizzle out. They just wouldn't play Test. It would just naturally fizzle out. So ultimately, them suggesting this here, in my opinion, they haven't thought about it in that way that means that it's going to strengthen Test cricket globally. It's basically trying to say it's like just them looking after the main powerhouses of Test cricket rather than how to actually develop it and stuff. And I think that the way you explain it is right, because they have, for it to succeed. And you mentioned about the fair pay, which is again is a very, very valid point. But teams need England to travel there, and India to travel there, and Australia to travel there. And if they don't go, then no disrespect, but there's going to be various teams, and Afghanistan versus Pakistan series. I don't know, that might be a bad example, but it's just not going to generate anything. You mentioned their commercial from TV rights. Nobody's going to pick that up. And one thing that got me thinking as well, and it sort of relates to what we discussed last week actually as well, is if someone like a Netflix or an Amazon was to pick up what you discussed, off the back of that, marketing wise, is phenomenal, because you start looking at behind the scenes series, you start looking at the journeys in terms of the road to the tops and various bits and pieces, and that then opens up to different audiences. The Drive to Survive that we discussed last week is something that people looked at and was like, whoa, this is a sport I didn't think I was interested in.
Yeah.
I love the technicalities behind it. I love the arguments that take place and the disagreements. And all of a sudden, people start to see what actually takes place in behind the scenes cricket, from balancing teams and various other bits and pieces. And it opens up that new opportunities and stuff. So, yeah, what you said is absolutely spot on. I just hope that people, or the powers that be, start to think about it in a logical way that actually makes the sport grow, rather than selfishly just look after the big powerhouses of the sport.
I just think that it's so interesting, because you look at football, they're expanding, so the respective leagues try and expand to as many teams as they possibly can, given any opportunity. The World Cup expands to cover as many teams as possible. Yeah. Whereas cricket, on the other hand, is trying to sort of eat itself, which doesn't make sense. How can you be the second largest sport in the world, but are trying to reduce your numbers? Every business is trying to grow. Right now, cricket is solely dependent on the Asian continent for its viewership.
Yeah.
If, for example, the Asian Cricket Council decided to meet with India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and decide that they'll go and form their own entity and just play amongst themselves, what would the ICC do? Because then the same boards that were deemed second tier now become your only tier. What if, let's say, all the boards that are not India, Australia, England say, we realize that you guys are trying to stifle us, we want a way and we'll play amongst ourselves? What's going to happen there? So I don't think that it should ever be a situation where countries or regions feel chastised and you're trying to marginalize various countries, because every international cricketing country that has test status has a story and has fought a battle and has contributed to world cricket to get to that point, whether they are currently good or not. They have done some things over a period of time to get to the position they're at. So I just don't think that that's the right move from the ICC.
No, and what I think sort of going under the radar a little bit with this proposal stuff is, off the top of my head, I can't remember the year, but with the Olympics and the cricket that's been in the Olympics in LA, the more countries that are playing cricket, whether that be Test cricket or white ball cricket, once it gets to the Olympics, it then opens again into a different opportunity. So if you start getting your infrastructure in place, especially for red ball now, I appreciate that the Olympics is going to be white ball orientated, fine. But by going in that direction when the Olympics take place and it's all a mess at the minute, you're already at risk of losing it already, because there'll be more eyes on T20 cricket. And whereas when you want the eyes on your sport, you want the infrastructure to be in place and it to be its peak and it's primed. We discussed that last year with the World Cup taking place in America, in the Caribbean. And there were various issues and various bits and pieces that sort of we discussed. But if they got that right 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it could have been a different kettle of fish and how it worked out. And ultimately, they've got to start to learn from these, not mistakes as such, but they've got to learn to get it right. Because it could just, the split could just cause massive issues. And I don't think it's ready to, I don't want that to happen. And that's why I'm speaking so passionately about it, because I just think that the Olympics will give us a great opportunity. So you got to utilise that and then when you talk about calendar and planning, it's not from it advantages everybody. It advantages players' schedules. It advantages the fans because they get to know what's happening and what's going on. It advantages the board, the countries. It advantages so many people just having that structure. And I just hope that, I don't want it to just fizzle out and we just have the 6 and the 7 and the rest just do what they need to do. It's a shame. It'll be sad. It'll be a shame.
From an English fan standpoint, because as you said, there was no mention of promotion and relegation, and even if there were, the financial viability of having, let's say, India were to fall to tier 2, and India now has to play a Zimbabwe, a West Indies, a
Bangladesh and Afghanistan.
For a 2-year cycle. How do you think that would work out?
Well, what you'd end up finding is they wouldn't the stars wouldn't play because they financially wouldn't make sense for them to play when there's all these franchise tournaments taking place. So they'd end up in a situation where, I couldn't imagine them playing, but but also the benefit would be massive because the eyes that would be on an Afghanistan versus India and the teams, because of what India bring, it would also have advantages as well, because it would, the growth, the Indian market would have a massive advantage on the nations they play in. But do I think that the top names wouldn't play because commercially the money wouldn't be there for them, so they just end up playing the franchise tournaments? Whereas obviously what you discussed in terms of having this set fee, and then if they wanted to top it up and however each nation country wanted to do that, that's fine. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think it won't be viable if one of the big, quote unquote, 3 weren't in the top tier. Because ultimately, I guess the ICC is looking at this as playing as much financially generating series as possible. Having said that, there still has to be a level of parity to it. You can't, because ultimately this comes across as fixing. Like you're staging what matches are going to be played now and how often they're going to be played. So this almost comes across as fixing in my mind. So I just don't think that it should be something that should be dabbled with at all.
No. Well, it's an interesting point you make there about the fixing, because effectively all they're trying to do is control the market.
Yeah. Which
is what you're saying, they're trying to basically dictate who plays who to benefit them the most. I just hope that there has also been various kickbacks from some people in the games, important people in the game. So I hope that the ICC look at it in a way of trying to make it work, because the franchise thing is an issue anyway. So they're going to have to address that naturally.
Yeah.
And England have tried to do it by making this statement regarding the NOCs stuff, which seems to be completely up in the air at the minute, because the PSL draft was yesterday as we recorded today, and you've got county players who've been drafted or signed, and then they've come out and basically said like, "Oh, we're not sure what's actually happening." So it's a bit of an interesting one because, like you were saying, and I appreciate it's a bit of different situation, but they're going to be looking at their county contract versus what their PSL wages and think, well, where do I go now? What where do you think I'm going to go? I'm going to go which is got, regardless of playing county cricket in the NOC, it's just a case of I want to try and capitalise on my income as much as I can.
Exactly. I mean, I think that was just a whole unnecessary situation because it's the exact same window as the IPL.
Yeah.
So how is it then that players would be granted leave to go and play in the IPL, but players won't be granted leave to go and play in the PSL, which is exactly the same time?
That's it. That's it. It's you can't. Well, again, that sort of. I don't want to say the word fixing as such, but that's where this dominant voice from the ICC, like, well, you can go and play IPL because it's Indy, but you can't go and play the PSL because it's in Pakistan. It was, oh, what's the difference? Tom Cole Cadmore basically come out, I think it was yesterday when he was picked, saying, as it stands at the minute, I won't be playing county cricket. That'll be me done, because he signed in this PSL for whoever he's signed for in his county, Somerset, I think it is at the time, currently. He's saying, well, that'll be it. But that doesn't help anybody anyway, because currently you've got Somerset. If it is Somerset, I do. If it's not, then I do apologise. But whoever county cricket Tom Cole Cadmore plays for are now in a situation where they're probably planning for the season. All right, what have we got? What this and that? Thinking, well, do we have him or do we not have him? When we spoke to Otis, over 12 months ago, and he discussed obviously how difficult it was at times planning and how hard it was, not coming, and he was talking about from an international duty perspective. And then you've got situations like this. We're not helping the ECB are not helping the game. They think they are by trying to encourage people to play it, but they're not.
Yeah, you definitely can't take away somebody's right to go and play in another league, especially when you've granted opportunities for other people to do the same. And again, obviously, Pakistan being a tier 2, it sort of like sheds light on the situation completely at the moment. So I think that's going to be an interesting battle. I think that's going to have to be overturned. And I just think that the whole thing, it just reeks of nepotism at this point in time.
Yeah. And the frustrating thing, and the reason is frustrating because we just want what's best for the sport. And we think, we speak about, commercially how other sports go about it and benefit from utilising the strengths and, however they go about it. And yet, I feel that with cricket, it's constantly just I feel like we're half the time we've got an issue or there's something all the time, rather than really sort of trying to promote everything. And that's what I mentioned before about the Olympics. Other sports don't have that opportunity where we're going into that sort of new opportunity, but yet they still manage growth and they still manage to get that extra bit of just general marketing, I suppose, of the sport. There always seems to be something that holds it back. It's frustrating because there's nothing more than I think if you ask England fans where they love going to watch cricket the most, and for people they'll obviously naturally turn around and say they want to go to Australia, but I think a lot of people love going to the Caribbean to watch cricket. And I appreciate that the white ball tours will take place, but we should be watching Test cricket in the Caribbean as part of the the calendar and how that takes place and stuff.
And England haven't won a Test series out in the Caribbean for a long time, for 20 years, 21 years. So it's not as if it's something that's not a feasible option. England haven't won in Australia as well for a very long time.
Yeah, 2000.
So even though that there are, teams that are not, I guess, quote unquote, performing or dominating at the moment, you still have teams that go and win games, go and win series, cause an upset, and probably just need more assistance from the ICC as opposed to being pushed to the side.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, you mentioned there, the West Indies they pick up the game when they play England.
Yeah.
So you see that increase in performance because it's, you're playing against the. And I suspect we'll see it this summer when they play Australia for the 3-test series. I think you'll see a lot of I appreciate they're still a young side and there might be some changes with Darren Sammy and stuff like that. But I still believe you'll see an increase in performance because it's like that shot window situation where it's like, this is Australia. They've just come off the back of beating India. They are arguably the best team in they are, from a Test cricket perspective. Technically, I suppose South Africa. Anyway, by the by, so there's going to be a raise in performance. The one thing I would say is positive is in terms of what we've discussed as well on the podcast, and I've read a bit that there's talk of West Indies coming over here in the summer, and they're going to play Ireland as well. So we've spoke before about obviously integrating, when teams going on the tours and playing, neighbouring countries and stuff. So that's a benefit.
100%. I'm just gonna drop one bombshell on you tonight.
Go on.
Before we end this podcast, Darren Sammy comes in as coach for the Australia series.
Yeah.
I reckon Craig Bradwood will not be captain anymore. I'm not sure if he's going to be in the team, but he definitely won't be captain anymore. And the captain's choice is not going to be Joshua De Silva, who is the vice captain either. I had previously thought it was going to be Shea Hope.
Right.
But very left field, I'm hearing it may be Justin Graves.
Wow. Has he got any first class captain experience?
No.
Okay. Interesting. Right. That's definitely an interesting point that you make and a bombshell as you mentioned. But hell, that's caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that.
We'll let that marinate with our viewers for a few days.
Definitely. Do you, on the topic then of that, do you expect any of the white ball players to, or if any, or who do you expect to see potentially part of the squad?
Definitely there will be some white ball players in. I think the most natural fit right now for me, I've been saying for the longest time, I think Sherfield and Rutherford's game would suit Test cricket. He's a batter, and you can see that he bats properly in pretty much every innings he plays, whether it's a Test match or 20. Like, he does score quickly, but you can see the art of batting is within him. So I think that he's definitely probably someone I would say that will be in those first round of changes that will be added to the team.
Right. I want to go back to your point. Sorry about you mentioned there about Justin Greaves. How could that have a positive impact on the side? Would it upset someone like a Joshua De Silva who ended up in a situation? How does that impact that side?
I'm not sure Joshua De Silva should have been in Pakistan, so I don't think he should be upset at anything. He should be happy right now. Amir Jangu is breathing down his neck like a venomous dragon, so I'm not sure he has time to be upset or anything. But yeah, I guess obviously change of coach, change of scenery. He might just want to have someone that he feels that can work alongside him and execute his his plans, his style of play. And again, this is just me speculating. This is not anything cast in stone, but I just think that obviously somebody's going to come in with clearly a different style of play than what Andrew Cole has gone for. I think that the test team now sort of plays and represents or reflects the way that the captain plays, which is a very slow grind of cricket. And Sammy is looking for a more positive brand of cricket. And so, I mean, naturally, you just put two and two together and know that a change of leadership at the very least is coming.
Do you think that Justin Greasy's place in the side is secure enough for him to be captain?
I think that the only three people that have a secure slot in the test side would be Gudakesh Moti, not Craig Brathwaite, Kimar Roach, and Jaden Sears.
I was going to say, I thought they'd be all bowlers,
Yeah. For me, it's just those three. I think everyone else is at the mercy and at the discretion of the selectors at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be an interesting one to see how it all unfolds, and it could be you heard it here first. Potentially, we could rewind and say, well, the PowettPlay podcast brought it to you first.
Breaking news.
Breaking news, yeah. It'll be good to look back and see some of the points we made, and some of the points you definitely made in terms of from an ICC formatting perspective is, it's interesting that you've been doing that for 2.5 months, and you can tell that it's obviously the thought that's gone into it as well. It's not something that you just woke up this morning and thought, oh, it's something that's taken, some consideration, and I think ultimately it's going to benefit cricket across all the nations, which is what we want to see, as we discussed. So, excellent. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
See you soon.
See you soon, Kai.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay Podcast, hosted by Kieran Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device, or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay Podcast.